My primary goal for 2020 was to catch some huge largemouth bass. I started casting for them in January. I got lucky in a handful of spots, landing a bunch of fish between 3 and 6 pounds. I even brought a few enormous chain pickerel to hand. Most of these big fish came on bait, but I really wanted to get one on something artificial. I consulted my friend Chris, who knows largemouth like the back of his hand. He informed me about a method for targeting big bass called the wake bait. I decided to tie my own fly version of a wake
I don't
bait.
think I'm gonna catch any, but I tied up this fly. It's got a packed deer hair head and a couple, game changer shanks, little ones. So looks pretty good in the water. It's really long. Apparently, the big bass are looking for a big meal, so tied a nice big one. Chris also said to retrieve it extremely slowly.
So a key part of this method is to fish during low light or late at night. I'm glad I got some practice in during the daylight, because fishing a surface fly at night was not an easy task. On a new moon night, in the absence of light, it is impossible to tell exactly where your fly is. My fly therefore ended up snagged in many trees. Notice the big V-wake that comes off the front. This is a good attractor for many species of fish, and largemouth are no exception. After a quick twitch, the fly will bend into an S shape. All of the long fibers in the fly seem to be perpetually in motion. A fly that can exhibit such movement while the angler isn't imparting any action is absolutely deadly. I had a few close calls with big fish right after sunset on my first outing. This confirmed the fly was going to work. I took it out to my favorite honey hole when darkness settled in. It produced a bunch of blow-ups and a few hookups. I even brought a crappie to hand one night. I continued my pursuit and kept catching small fish. The big girl actually came when I least expected it. I was fishing the surf for striped bass one night, a few days after the spearing had arrived. Despite the ideal surf conditions and the abundance of bait, the stripers just weren't there. This was my third skunk in a row on the ocean, so I figured I'd target a new species, catfish. I casted my bait at 11:30 p.m., but it felt strange. A light fog settled onto the water's surface, and I got a very fishy feeling. I knew it was going to be a good night for bass. I ran to get my 8-weight fly rod and tied an extra long 30-pound leader. I threw my digital scale in my back pocket and ran to an open gap in the brush-lined bank. I stroked my 70s porno mustache for good luck and casted my fly over a fallen tree about 20 feet to my right. I pulled out extra line for my second cast. I focused my eyesight towards the darkest water so that my periphery would be more sensitive to my dimly lit white fly. I collected my line, then sent my fly 40 feet straight out. The deer hair slapped the water, and I sprinted it halfway across the surface. I stopped to allow the fly's fibers to undulate and dance in place. All of a sudden, a loud pop and a watery crash broke the silence of the night. I hesitated for a moment, then strip set as the fish sprinted towards the depths. My rod bent to the cork. The bass dove again and again, testing the fortitude of my 8-weight rod. Then she swam up and broke clear out of the water. Time slowed down. Her giant body silhouetted against the moonlit backdrop as she whipped her tail and shook her head. The valiant fight continued underwater all the way to the bank. I tried dragging her onto shore, but she was too heavy. I ran up and grabbed her lip. My scale would confirm that this was my best largemouth to date, coming in at 7 pounds, 7 ounces. I hope you enjoyed this fish story. Let me know what you think below, and I'll use your input to make better videos in the future. Please subscribe if you liked it, and I'll keep them coming. Tight lines.